Week 9 first look. Right now, at the start of things, the first thing that jumps off the page to me is that Josh Allen's price, while it definitely is up there, not as egregious as on FanDuel. So that's the first thing that sticks out to me. Still think that people will probably find ways to get off of the spot uh, with guys like Lamar Jackson sitting down there, as well as a Jalen Hurts price tag that actually kind of jumps off the page. I know it's against the Chargers, but 6,700 for that guy, man, that's quite a steal. Quarterback seems, just as top heavy as always. I do think that people will find ways off of. I don't know. Do you think people actually go Mahomes and cash here after watching what he did last night?
Probably not. I can almost say definitely will not go Mahomes' way after what they saw last night. I think Josh Allen's okay at 8,200, but still not super excited about the play. I like Lamar at 73. And then I also like Tua at 58. I know we talked a lot about Tua yesterday, but against this Houston defense, I feel like I could find myself going Tua as a cheap QB option.
Yeah, the cheapos are definitely a topic of conversation today. We talked a lot about how, you're always kind of paying up at quarterback on FanDuel, and that's kind of how I feel comfortable with things this week as well. As far as these cheap guys that are more in consideration for tournaments, I do think Tua's on the fringe cash side of things. But there are some quarterbacks that we have to talk about in terms of the guys that are coming in to be backups this week. So we have Taysom Hill sitting here at 5,500. We also have Trevor Siemian coming in at 5,400. We have yet to really know who's going to start yet, but heard people on some talk shows this morning talk about Taysom Hill getting the start. I'll believe it when I see it. I don't think he's cleared concussion protocol yet. So if that happens, I mean, maybe he gets the start here. But Trevor Siemian did just pretty. He didn't get a comeback necessarily. I guess you could call it that. But he entered the game 7-7 against the Bucks and pulled out the W. So it would be really tough. It'd be a tough look for Sean Payton to be like, hey, we're going to bench you for Taysom Hill, who had no participation in last week's game. So I don't know. For me, if Hill's clear and good to go, he's going to disrupt everything. If Simeon's named the starter, I could see both of them having a role. Kind of seems like a stay away spot to me, although I do think that Kamara is going to be very interesting. What are you thinking about and reading around the New Orleans camp here?
Yeah, I saw. So I think it will be Taysom Hill, just because I did see this morning. Sean Payton was saying how Taysom Hill is on track, and to say he's on track is kind of implying that like you expect him to be the starter come this game this weekend. I would assume it's going to be Taysom Hill. I just think, we talked about it a little bit on the morning after show. Sean Payton just likes Taysom Hill a little bit too much, in our opinion, and especially in my opinion. So I just don't see a way that you end up not having Taysom Hill as the starter.
Yeah, it's gross, but again, this is against the Atlanta Falcons, so I could definitely see a situation where Taysom's the starter. He's in play, but it kind of like this offense just is not going to work with him in it. I don't know. I know that he won them games last year, and they should win here. No problem. Well, not no problem, but they should. I believe that one of his starts was against this same Atlanta team in New Orleans too. That might have been the day that he was the tight end eligible around this time of the year last year. Um, so I don't know. I think he's fine. I just don't know if he has slate winning upside.
Yeah, that's kind of my problem is that like there's not a lot of these cheap guys that have slate winning upside. I think really the only one that I see that I really like for that slate winning upside would end up being Tua. But I mean, outside of that, like I don't know, I just don't see any of these other guys competing in that regard.
Yeah, you got Bridgewater against Dallas in what should be an up-tempo game for Denver, 5,300. There's some other spots, and if Melvin Gordon if he gets traded for whatever reason, maybe we have more interest at other positions for this Denver team. In terms of the others, we still need to find the news of who's going to start for the Houston Texans this week, whether it be Davis Mills or Tyrod Taylor. Also, don't really know who those offensive weapons are going to be because they could all start to get dealt here and there over the next few hours. And then we'll have to keep an eye on what's going on with Dak Prescott this week as well. really kind of gross all the way down here. So I'm personally staying away from all of it in cash. But in tournaments, things start to get really interesting when you start considering guys like Tua, like possibly taking a shot on some of these guys. Maybe Daniel Jones is in play 5,600. I don't know. I mean, any other consideration here? Maybe Derek
No,
Carr.
not. So like Derek Carr does make an interesting case. I think he is one of those viable guys as well. I don't think I'm going farther than that. And we even saw like Patrick Mahomes had some troubles, and obviously he's had trouble against everyone. But like the Giants' defense did not look bad last night, so I don't think you can even say Derek Carr's in a position to take advantage of a matchup that's elite here. It's really just going to be Tua for me. Maybe I go up an extra 1,000 and get some Joe Burrow action here at 6,800. But like we talked about yesterday, it's kind of hard to pay for Joe Burrow when we don't really know what that ceiling looks like.
Yeah, exactly. And that's my whole thing always on DraftKings is no matter who you have at quarterback, if it's under six, if it's like under 6,500, let's say for example the cutoff is Jalen Hurts. For me, you have to have 20 DraftKings points or else you're screwed. And in tournaments, you have to have 25 plus point upside and make sure that everything goes according to plan with the guys you stack, or maybe you don't stack, but you still need 25 from that quarterback. I think that Hurts is the lowest I would go in cash this week, and that's where I would stop. But again, do we? I mean, I don't know. It was it a blip last week? A little bit, sure. I don't expect Hurts to ever have that kind of performance again when his team scores as many points as they do. But I think that I would feel much better going up, probably just a little bit more. $600 get you Lamar Jackson against Minnesota in a game that I think shoots out throughout the entire game.
Yeah, should be interesting. We did just get some breaking news, not of the good variety though, not of the trade variety. We just found out from TMZ that Henry Ruggs got into a serious car accident. So
Whoa,
prayers up for Henry Ruggs. Hope he gets better.
wow, that's extremely unfortunate. You get rarely
Yeah,
get news like that happens.
yeah.
Okay, okay. So moving forward here, it does look like we also got some news on Deshaun Watson a little bit here. It says according to an NFL source, this is from Mark Berman of Fox. The Dolphins agreed to trade for Deshaun Watson. Oh, sorry, I need to backtrack a list. If Miami agrees to trade for Deshaun Watson, it'll have to get done without all of the 22 women who filed civil lawsuits against Watson agreeing to settle, and with several balking at signing a non-disclosure agreement. So obviously, the women are trying to not sign a non-disclosure agreement. They want this thing to get out, whatever it is. So that still tells me that it's not going to happen for the next month plus.
Yeah, easily, very easily.
All right. Nothing else for me in regards to quarterback. As much as it is stacked, it also feels like there's not enough. And I think it's a really good tournament slate in terms of the quarterbacks up top that make a lot of sense. You can say that maybe a guy like Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr are in play here if those games shoot out. And maybe if Dak Prescott plays, you can consider him. But again, Denver, not really the best. It's going to be more of a pace down spot for Dallas than it would be for Denver. Uh, yeah, I mean, any interest in maybe a guy like Justin Herbert against Philly?
I think Herbert's okay. I don't think it's a bad play necessarily. It's just like his price tag's at 7K. You can go up an extra 300 and get Lamar Jackson in a much
Yeah, yeah,
better
yeah.
spot. So, like
Exactly.
yeah, I don't like it. I think it is top heavy though is the problem. Like Josh Allen, of course, in play. Patrick Mahomes, I think he is in play for tournaments. I don't think we can completely count out Mahomes. Aaron Rodgers definitely in play. Lamar Jackson in play. Joe Burrow in play. And then Tua in play. That would be like my list of guys that I would have in a player pool if I was making 150 lineups.
I would still not be shocked if Patrick Mahomes finds a way to be more owned in tournaments than Rodgers.
Yeah, that would certainly be interesting if that's the case. That might just be a popularity thing too, right? Like sometimes people like to play their favorite players, and Mahomes is a favorite player for a lot of people.
Sure. I'll definitely be building a lot of. You need to remind me to build a bunch of stacks of this game.
Oh, dude, we're gonna do it together at the tailgate or something when we're both a little
Yeah.
drunk.
Yeah. Get all my MVS exposure that way, I guess. Uh,
There you go.
let's move on to running back here. Alvin Kamara sits at the top of the board. This is the first week where I know we've had a couple weeks like this, but I believe this is the first one where we have one running back above 8,000, and then the rest are kind of. We do have a bunch of 7K guys that are in play here, but running back seems to definitely be taking a huge hit in terms of whether it be injury or just bye week or primetime game. This position is certainly a bit more ravaged than the others. I guess you can't say that Kamara is not a good play because he certainly is against Atlanta, no matter who the QB is. I would just say that if Trevor Siemian is the quarterback, I feel much better about Kamara's upside. I still think that it's there. However, we know that Mark Ingram's getting involved. We also know that if Taysom Hill is around the goal line or the red zone, there are always options for him to steal touchdowns away from Kamara. So that's my only hesitancy. There's not much, and there's not many holes to poke in here, but the Kamara certainly is a little bit. It's not scary in cash. You're playing him in cash because he is 8,200, and he's going to give value against Atlanta with the pass catching upside. It's just I worry about the tournament ceiling with Taysom Hill in there moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I just worry about his value as a whole. Like at 8,200, we saw it last year when Taysom Hill was able to step in. It just kind of completely sucked the life out of any Alvin Kamara love for fantasy. Like he turned into a running back who wasn't scoring a lot, wasn't getting those check down passes that we're used to, wasn't doing much in the fantasy realm at all. So like it's hard to find a lot of love for Alvin Kamara if Taysom Hill is going to be starting. I'd rather pay down an extra 300 and go to Austin Eckler, who's a running back that I like a lot this week.
Yeah, I certainly don't mind Eckler. I like his pass catching upside always. And even in a tough matchup last week, he still found a way to get the job done. Dalvin Cook also down there at 7,700. That's a crazy price tag for him. I don't think Dalvin Cook's been under 8K for like the last 2, 3 seasons. So very interesting tag there. Aaron Jones probably falls under the radar again, but excellent tournament option against Kansas City in that high-paced environment. Even with the money line and the a bunch of the spreads moving in Green Bay's direction, this game total has stayed pretty pat at 56. So I still think that it may come down to 55 or maybe 54 and a half by kickoff, but this thing still feels like a shootout to me no matter how bad the Chiefs looked last night.
Yep, I would agree. I think it will be a shootout. I think you'll see a lot of points scored in that game. Um, it's just a matter of it's just a matter for me, like who does it on Green Bay, right? It's always the question of who does it on Green Bay because it can always be Aaron Jones or it can just be the Rodgers and Davonte Adams show. Um, it's tough to always figure that out week to week, but that's why, like you said, they're tournament plays.
Yep, Aaron Jones last time that he faced the Chiefs was in a spot where Mahomes actually missed that game. Now it kind of passes me by who actually started because it wasn't. I don't think it was Henny, but Jones did end up going ballistic in that game. The Chiefs were a much worse. Well, I don't even know if I can say much worse, but that was a few years ago when we were heavily targeting and the Chiefs' run defense as one of the most streamable defenses to run on, kind of equivalent to Houston or Detroit at this point. So while I think it's a little bit better, the price tag at 7,200 on DraftKings is extremely affordable in tournaments. Cash, you're probably not going there because I think that some of these other guys are a little bit more dependable. We just don't really know what the Packers are going to do with their running backs, and I think that last week was a good example of what they would do if they had no Davonte Adams. But now that Adams is projected to be back, it's going to be a different scenario. So let's move down the list and talk about some other guys that are going down in this high 6K range. We do have Joe Mixon against Cleveland. Not the best matchup on paper, but if he gets the touches, he's found a way to get there as soon as he gets over 15 of them. Elliott against Denver. I wish that they would have showcased him more with the backup QB situation against Minnesota. But I mean, 7K for Zeke is just criminal too. So I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of baffled at some of these price tags. We have guys like Cook, like even Eckler's underpriced at 7,900. So a lot of these guys are super underpriced, and I'm very interested to see how this week shapes out in terms of that. And finally, another guy that's criminally priced is Nick Chubb at 6,700.
Yeah, I mean, I know you talked about loving the Nick Chubb play yesterday, and I think that at this price tag on DraftKings, it's definitely in play. The problem for me is that like anyone else above 6K absolutely sucks. Like I don't want to, I don't we don't even know if James Robinson is going to play this game, but sorry, excuse me. Then you have Cordarrelle Patterson. Don't really like the Patterson play. Don't really like the Josh Jacobs play. Not going to play Chuba. Not going to play Damian Harris. Everyone else above 6K is terrible.
I could get behind Devontae Booker if Saquon misses. Now, he wasn't showcased much last night, but he still had 15 attempts for 60 yards. And the pass game work is there. He still had a very solid PPR performance. So I can get behind Devontae Booker at this price tag if Saquon's out. The problem is, I believe Saquon's trending towards being in. Um, I know that they said that he didn't play last night due to too much swelling and soreness, but he should be. It's going to be a close to a game time decision call for Saquon. So, coming off a short week, we'll see how they deal with that, and we'll see if the rest of the wide receiver group is healthy because it could be a spot where whoever the running back is going to be in a spot where they're going to get a lot of targets. So, I like the Giants depending on the news that shakes out. Miles Gaskin at 5,800 seems like a trap play, but again, no Malcolm Brown. Uh, Gaskin's just gonna get the touches, and it sounds disgusting. I like he actually didn't have that many targets against Buffalo, which was surprising to me because that game was close throughout until the fourth quarter. Um, I don't know. That's probably a fade spot for me, but in tournaments, I could see people going there towards the end of the week here. I guess
Yeah,
the go ahead. I know you would
I
love
was
to
just
talk
gonna
about
say,
Gaskin.
yeah, it's just my favorite thing to do, right? Um, I can definitely see people going here. I can even see myself going here at some points. But probably like you said, more tournament play than anything else. It's just the Houston matchup is so enticing.
Yeah, I wish that something I don't know. The, I didn't see anything about this score news come in about Kansas City until I started watching that game last night. They kept this play pretty under the radar. So I feel like while Daryl Williams is fine, that just tells me that Clyde's pretty much done. He's not coming back. So they just keep an eye on what happens in the next couple hours. We still have what 3.5 more hours of the trade deadline left.
Yeah.
So keep an eye on this Kansas City running back situation. They probably whoever they pick up will not be activated for this week. I guess they might be put on the 53-man roster, but I still think that Williams makes some sense here in tournaments. However, it's very confusing because I thought that they were gonna like he had a shot to get the workload that he had during the game against Washington where he had 25 touches or 24 touches. Was kind of disappointing in that game script last week where they had Tennessee and he only got 8 touches total. Yesterday he had 19 total touches. Got there PPR. FanDuel, it's a little bit more of a scary situation, but with the fact that they are probably going to be in a shootout, if not trailing, uh, Daryl Williams makes sense at 5,700. So I don't know. It's still gross, but I think that that's he's. I can't rule him out just yet. Let's talk about man. It gets all pretty gross
Just
down
such
here.
an ugly range.
Yeah.
There's not even much to talk about. I will say like whatever happens in Philly is interesting, right? You have
Yep.
Boston Scott at 5,200. You have Jordan Howard under 5K at 4,700. I feel like both of those running backs are interesting cases. The fact that Gainwell didn't have his breakout spot kind of tells you everything that you needed to know in that last game. Like 13 rushing attempts against the Detroit defense should mean that you have probably around 50 yards and just show he didn't show up. So like it sucks to see, but like I think that you can I think that Boston Scott and Jordan Howard are going to do their jobs against the Chargers, and we know that Chargers is a run funnel defense where they're going to allow the run to go on all day long.
Yep, agreed. I think that Scott's interesting at 5,200. The guy that I would much rather play over him would be if Melvin Gordon moves on. You get Javonte Williams breakout time at 4,800 against Dallas in a pace up spot. He's going to get the PPR work in the backfield. I don't think that they really have, like, if they deal Gordon, which I think was kind of their plan all along this year, I don't think that Mike Boone takes too much of the work. I think it's going to be like I would say it's like a 65-35 for Javonte Williams, whereas right now it's pretty split, like 51-49 Gordon at the moment. So I do think that Javonte Williams has the upside to get 15 to 18, maybe even 20 touches in a spot where they're just waiting for him to break out at this point. So I know that the box score is not going to say this. I know that everything isn't going to say this, but if Melvin Gordon moves, this is going to be an extremely beneficial spot for Javonte the rest of the season.
Yep, I completely agree. It will be a super beneficial spot. It'll be nice to see what his ceiling is going to look like because I mean, like he should be in a really good spot to get a lot of touches if Melvin Gordon does end up moving on.
Yeah, so we talked about the Robinson injury yesterday, about how it looked really bad, but apparently he escaped uh, huge damage to that leg or to the heel. So yeah, I think that I honestly thought that the James Robinson injury looked worse than the Henry injury. So I'm surprised that he is actually week to week. So with that being said, they get a matchup against Buffalo. It's not ideal. I respect that defense tremendously. I would much rather take Javonte Williams over a guy like Carlos Hyde or even Dare Ogunbowale, whoever they decide to roll out there. I don't know. It's just the Jacksonville situation is disgusting. So I think James Robinson misses, but it's going to be hard to ignore. One of these guys is going to catch a bunch of balls in the backfield.
Wow, if you have a chance to look in the production room, you can see the car crash that Henry Ruggs is in, and it looks insane. Like both cars are absolutely crushed.
Yeah. I also saw that
Like
he
it's
was driving at like 3 in the morning.
yes, I saw that as well. So definitely something that we should keep updated on
Yeah, I'm not going to get too far into that. I know people have already
for
made
sure.
comments about Vegas. So,
For sure.
anyway, where would they say where Gordon would go? They haven't said anything. They're just taking offers, but I think things have been. He's been one of the guys that's been talked about um, due to his recent performances. Not that they've been fantastic, but he's been scoring touchdowns the last couple of weeks. So
Yep.
I think that they would pick a guy like Melvin Gordon over a Devontae Freeman or Tyson Williams or any of those Ravens running backs at this point. So okay, let's go ahead. I mean, keep an eye on the James Robinson thing. I hope that that's kind of cloudy coming into the week. Maybe people chase the Carlos Hyde thing. I don't know, but it's definitely not going to be a one-person back situation like James Robinson had kind of developed for himself.
Yep. Completely agree.
All right, let's talk about wide receiver here. Davonte Adams comes in at the same price tag as Alvin Kamara. Very interesting. Where Tyreek Hill comes in at 7,900, Debo Samuel 78, Stephon Diggs got a price jump at 77, and Jamar Chase kind of fell down the ladder a little bit at 76. So I like a lot of these spots for these top guys. I believe that Debo Samuel is going to be the one that goes under owned out of the three of them. Tyreek Hill did not get a price bump after last night's fantastic performance. He was the only Chief that really showed up yesterday. What are we doing with these top wide receivers? I think that the clear cash answer is just to go ahead and play Devontae.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, and that is the clear cash answer. The question is like, are you potentially playing another one of these guys as a GPP pivot? I think Tyreek Hill
Yep.
deserves some love, especially after that performance he had last night. Pay attention to Debo Samuel. We found out that he is dealing with a calf injury right now, so it's going to be important to pay attention to make sure that he is going to be healthy for this very important game for the 49ers. Diggs, I wouldn't really play Diggs right now. I think he's in a bad spot, in all honesty, and just way too priced up here. And then Jamar Chase, I love me some Jamar Chase this week. We know that, especially in GPPs, like his ceiling is insane week in and week out. So I like the Jamar Chase play quite a bit.
Yeah, the Stephon Diggs thing is certainly going to draw some attention. And if you look at the box score, it's going to tell you some interesting stories. Uh, the Tennessee touchdown definitely warranted. That game was going back and forth. Buffalo technically underperformed in that spot, but give it all to Tennessee's defense. But they should have honestly had more there. I know that he had 11 targets and converted on 9 of them, but he was kind of busting before that touchdown late in the game against Janoris Jenkins. Same thing goes with the Miami situation. So I understand that he's had big games when Buffalo's expected to lead by a lot, but when you have before that touchdown last week for Diggs in the third quarter, he was like 3 for 15 with that's not going to get the job done at 7,700 when you have guys like Davonte Adams and Tyreek Hill and even Debo Samuel a few plays that are all going to be in extremely competitive games. I don't see this game staying competitive. One of the very many reasons why I chose AJ Brown last week was because I knew that game was going to stay competitive throughout the entire thing. Also, Michael Pittman in that same argument. So we're getting to the point in the season where you're just trying to take advantage of matchups that games that are going to stay closer. I would, if I were to guess, I know Buffalo's team total is high, but I think that I would assume that the Buffalo Jacksonville game total sits around like 48 or 49, whereas the Green Bay game sits at around 56 with the possibility of even going further.
Yeah, I'm checking our friends over at Bet Online to see if we have that. Um, give me 1 second. What game am I looking? Oh, that Jacksonville game. Yeah. Wow, dude, are you a Vegas odds maker, or did you already look at this?
No, I haven't looked at it.
48.5 is where the line is set at right now for the over under.
Yeah, makes sense. I kind of know where these team totals are at this point of the year. So,
Yeah.
um, well, that'll be interesting to see. If I were to go out on a limb, I would go as bold as saying I would take one, two, three, four, five receivers over Stephon Diggs in this range,
Yes.
with the one
I
leaving out being CD Lamb and Mike Williams. So,
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of D Hop, but I understand your sentiment. I understand what you're saying here.
all right, let's yeah, we can talk about the Minnesota receivers. We spent some time on them earlier yesterday, as well as these Baltimore guys. Marquis Brown, where is he at? He was very expensive on FanDuel. On DraftKings, Marquise Brown is $6,000. So that stands out to me as one of the best plays of the wide receiver position. You were able to get Davonte Adams and Marquise Brown really, really easily this week. We know that Calvin Ridley's going to be out. It's going to be a long term thing. It could possibly be a whole season thing. So the spot against New Orleans is not great. I think people still go back to Pitts, which isn't the worst idea. So we'll talk about him in a little bit. Anybody that sticks out to you under 7K outside of Brown here?
No, I mean maybe you go Brandon Cooks way if you want to run back from your Miami stack. If you do go with Tua, but I'm not even fully sold on that. Um, yeah, probably not anyone. Like 6K range kind of sucks in my opinion.
It does.
Probably not taking DJ Moore either. So like probably just sticking to Marquise Brown and then
Yeah.
going under that to see what's there.
Yeah, I mean it's becoming clearer now that usually this is the really juicy range in DraftKings, and since there aren't really many options down here, Marquise Brown's just gonna get. He's probably gonna be the most owned receiver on the slate, I would guess. Maybe Devontae matches him up there, but that's where I see a lot of people starting. That Minnesota Baltimore game is going to be one of the most popular game stacks in tournaments to get off of the Packers Chiefs game, in my opinion. So would not be surprised to see that start to gain some steam as the week progresses. Really sad that we can't talk about DJ Moore too much at 6,400 because that price tag is actually it's egregious. So I don't know, but we have not seen Carolina just take that next step to try to. They lost to the Falcons last week, or wait, did they not? I forgot. I can't even remember anymore. It's been 2 days. Either way, the offense and these wide receivers just don't look good.
Yeah, well, so I was talking to a buddy on last Sunday. We were actually playing a video game while I was watching football in the background, and he was saying that I keep starting DJ Moore on my fantasy team, hoping that he'll just be good enough. But I've come to the realization that Sam Darnold just sucks too bad for DJ Moore to be any good. And
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That's the perfect way to say it as someone who like doesn't study the sport like I do. Like, yeah, that's probably exactly what we should think of DJ Moore. In all honesty.
Yep. Other crazy price tags here. Amari Cooper stands out like a sore thumb. He's 5,700. I think that the this must have been a pricing error because uh, they played on Sunday night, and I know that Cooper Rush is a step down from Dak Prescott, but 5,700 even with Cooper Rush in, I would still play Amari. So if for whatever reason Dak comes back and plays, I think that he's in play on both QB options. If we get the news that Cooper Rush is starting, I think that the game stays much closer and much more competitive, and I do like Amari Cooper here at 5,700.
Yep, I would agree that Amari Cooper would definitely be in play at that $5,700 price tag.
Other pivots off of Cooper involve Emmanuel Sanders, who donated in last week's performance. Jalen Waddle against Houston is interesting as well. Cole Beasley against Jacksonville is 5,400. He took a huge price increase from last week. Devontae Parker, I know that I bring up the Waddle thing because I think if anybody goes from Miami, it's going to be Devontae Parker for getting traded. So I think that Jalen Waddle could find himself being one of the better value plays on DraftKings. You don't even have to really go down the list, and I don't want to change the subject too much and go back on this Vegas thing. But if Ruggs misses, that certainly opens up some value, and I know that's a tough thing to bring up right now, but you got to talk about Renfro at 4,800 in that scenario.
Yeah, for sure. We do know that Ruggs is okay. We just got that news. We just got a tweet
Okay.
from Michael J. Babach, and he said that he survived the serious car accident. So positive news there for sure.
Okay.
I wouldn't be with seeing the car incident and everything. I wouldn't be surprised if you missed. So like you definitely have to start considering a Hunter Renfro. I don't even know the other. Maybe even a Zay Jones. Can we get some Zay Jones action in here? Is that
uh,
what we're looking at this week?
he might make three wide receiver sets, maybe.
There you go. Hey, hey, he got a catch last week, or not last week. It was week 7. One reception, one target, 43 yards. So Zay Jones always in the fold. I'm mostly joking, but I always love bringing up my good old uh, Zay Jones talk again.
Yeah, Vegas. I think it would be well, yeah. Zay Jones would find himself in three wide receiver sets. Renfro and Edwards would be the big two that would benefit from that, including Waller. They do lose. I think Ruggs is going to be out for sure on Sunday, but maybe the entire year. Who knows how serious the rest of it is? So, with that being said, they do lose a key guy that can streak down the field. They don't really have that anywhere else outside of Zay Jones. So, that'll be interesting to see how they move forward with this. So, looking at guys under 5K, um, you have Kadarius Toney against Vegas. You'll probably see some Casey Hayward, so it's not the best matchup in the world. You also have, I mean, Carolina's defense is that bad, but I would expect Stephon Gilmore to be around Jacoby Myers. This would be an interesting spot for Gilmore to kind of stick it to. I don't know. How do you think that ended up? Like, is he happy that he's gone from New England?
I'm sure he's happy, but I'm sure he's still pissed off at New England for treating him the way they did. So
Yeah.
I think there is a little bit of a narrative there. In all honesty, you can't really play that narrative in DFS, but
Yep.
it is a narrative in my opinion. When you're looking in this cheap price range, I really like this 4K range, like at the 4K mark. So you have Edwards, who I think will be a good play as long as we know that Henry Ruggs will be out. You have Ayuk, who could be a good play if we know that Debo's going to be out, or without with Debo being in, he's a good play as well. And then you also have Rashad Bateman at 4K.
Yeah.
I feel like those are three really solid value options that you have down here.
I like Rashad Bateman quite a bit in this range too. Could be a really excellent leverage off of Marquis Brown. You can also pair him with Lamar for a really, really, really cheap stack. I'm actually going to do that right now just for an example. So I'll go find Lamar and then pair him with the receivers for Baltimore. Could be an interesting spot to get off of some Andrews too, even though I do think he's in play. So Marquise and Bateman leaves you with yeah, it's only 17 grand used, so you can still have 5-4 per play. You can get up to Justin Jefferson or Thielen and have a pretty nice stack there, so I don't mind it. 4K for Bateman's too cheap, especially if Sammy Watkins misses again, which I think he should, right? He's questionable coming into the week. Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Sorry.
I
Go
believe,
go ahead.
yeah, he's not ruled out yet. I would assume that like Baltimore's in a spot where they need to win, but they also can be conservative with Watkins moving forward. So I think that he has a shot to miss again. If Watkins does in fact play, it definitely hurts Bateman considerably. So I'll probably stay off that in that scenario. But for right now, I think he's a fine option. In terms of some other options that could be interesting here, Randall Cobb against Kansas City certainly makes some interest for tournaments. Robbie Anderson all the way down to 4,500 now. That's crazy. I have nothing more to say about Robbie Anderson, so he's off the table for me. Traquan Smith had a decent game last week, got the touchdown. The targets just aren't there for him, and with the quarterback change, it's going to get even worse. So don't go there. The one guy I do want to bring up that makes some interesting sense. We do have an Atlanta offense now that's not going to be without their wide receiver one for what I think is the rest of the season. So Russell Gage 4,900. The one guy I wanted to bring up that makes some more sense is Taj Sharp at 4,200. We saw him get 6 targets last week against Carolina. Could be a spot where he runs into 2 wide receiver sets now with him and Gage there along with Pitts. So I think that you can get some interest here with Tajay. So the wide receiver position is kind of building itself. And you can get Adams at the top, Marquis Brown in the mid tier, and then you can pick between several guys anywhere from 4K to 4,500 that make a lot of sense.
Yep, I agree.
All right, let's see if there's anybody that's down here that makes some sense for tournaments. Nicole Hardman at 3,900 is certainly interesting. Pringle, same conversation. MVS, Marquez Valdez Scantling, should be activated from the IR this week against this Kansas City defense. Probably gets some Sorensen action, so we'll see how that goes. Zacchaeus, another guy that could benefit from the Ridley situation. And then I know Michael Gallup comes back this week too, so just keep an eye out on that as that would affect the rest of these Dallas receivers. Let's see. I think there's one more guy that I wanted to mention. I just don't know if he's on this slate. No. Washington, the Adam Humphries role is going to be a thing moving forward. So once they get back on a main slate, look out for that.
Yep, for sure.
All right, that's it for me. I'm not interested in any Houston receivers, even though if Brandon Cooks is dealt, that leaves them with a team that has everybody under 4,000. So Nico Collins would be the wide receiver one, Amendola would be the wide receiver two, and then you have Chris Conley and Chris Moore that are mid price on DraftKings. So that is very interesting. Also, like Miami, I know that they have solid corners, so that would make things even double interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested in the Nico Collins spot just because I know how good of a receiver he is, but probably just not going to take that spot. Really not interested in anything in this 3K range, at least right now, but we know that injuries probably open things up later on in the week.
Yeah, this we had a down week of news last week. This week is definitely not a shortage at all. Let's go ahead and move on to tight end, where Travis Kelsey sits in at 7K, which he should be like 6,000 now after yesterday, but he did not get the price adjustment after Monday Night Football. Reading a comment in the chat, Josh, I said last night that Travis Kelsey no longer my boy anymore.
Oh no, poor Travis Kelsey. What will he do?
Yeah, I understand that there's no reason to think that he still isn't who he is. He just had a really, really bad game. Like I said,
Yeah.
he was lost, and this happens a couple times a year. Like we saw, it happened against Philly in Week 4 too. But you would expect a little bit more. The fact that he even got 4 receptions off of 7 targets is phenomenal. I can't believe it. I didn't even think that it was that much. But I think like 4 of those came in the fourth quarter. So we'll see if he can bounce back here. It would be a spot where it would happen in a really good game environment. But I think that you're going to actually get a lot of people gravitate towards Hill this week, which could make Kelsey a pretty elite GPP option.
Yeah, I think that Kelsey could be an elite GPP option. I think that Waller could be interesting against the Giants. I think that a lot of people will go to Pitts. I'm not actually going to say I don't really like the play this week. I was shown enough last week that I don't need to target Kyle Pitts that much. I like the Mike Gesicki range where you get him at 4,900, get Ertz at 4,700, you get Goddard at 4,500. It seems like you're getting good price tags on these guys.
Yeah, I worry that people are just going to try to jam in Kelsey with all this wide receiver value. So I don't think you can do it. Like if you put Davonte in this Lamar Jackson build, it already makes things super hard for you. So I think that people kind of do go in the range that you suggested, whether that be Noah Fant against Dallas, Dallas Goddard against the Chargers. We know how bad the Chargers are defending the tight end, so that's an interesting spot there. Um, yeah, outside of that, I mean, Gasecki makes the most sense in this range of 4,900. And then moving down the list, it's always going to get uglier as things go on. There's a shot that this is really getting disgusting. But Evan Ingram, if he's traded, that means that Kyle Rudolph's the only tight end left for the Giants, and they could be without Sterling Shepard,
This
and
fucking guy.
they could be without everybody, and it's just Kyle Rudolph who caught a touchdown last night. Just saying.
I can't believe you just mentioned Kyle Rudolph's name on a stream. I think you're done for the day, Jared. I think you need to go take a nap. You said you've been working like you said that you've been working 4 hours before the morning after show. I think it's time for you to take a nap before you do anything else today.
Yeah, yeah. Dan Arnold got the price bump at 3,400. Still not enough for his role, but again, tough matchup against Buffalo. Jared Cook, decent spot against Philly. We know how bad they are against tight ends in a game that should be pretty competitive. Any love for Zach Ertz against San Francisco? It's a tough matchup. I don't really ever want to do that.
Not at that price. I think you get him at a better price over on FanDuel, but 4,700 I think is too much. He doesn't have like a truly dominant role where he's going to get a lot of catches. So I don't think there's a need to go to Zach Ertz at this high price tag. I'd rather go to Goddard, who I think is in a much better spot.
Yeah, this thing gets grosser and grosser as we go along, but I think Tyler Conklin at 3K is in play in GPP stacks. I'm not going to play him in cash games, but you could definitely make it. You know, if you decide that you want to go overweight on that game, then you can go Conklin. Watch out for Hurst being traded. If Hurst is traded, I don't think that doesn't really do anything for Kyle Pitts in terms of value because Hurts is their main blocking tight end while Pitts doesn't block at all. So it's very interesting to see what happens with him. I do think he gets moved in the next couple hours. Let's see. Juwan Johnson, gross. Mercedes Lewis, if for some reason the Packers don't get a tight end, could be in play in tournaments. It's a really deep shot, but he is one of those guys where Rodgers has the chemistry with him and could be a little bit more involved than normal. Again, very, very gross at 2,900. I was kind of impressed with what I saw from Tommy Tremble last week. I know the numbers didn't show it, but at some point, if they were to bounce back, that it's not a play this week, but Tommy Tremble, if he continues to stay under 3K, could have some kind of breakout game depending on matchup moving forward. And then I guess this is probably the grossest out of all of them, but if Jordan Akins were to get traded, you have to kind of look at Pharaoh Brown at 2,700 against Miami.
I can actually get behind the Farrell Brown play. I like Brown, so I think Brown's okay. I think everything else you said has been reaching. Play someone
Yeah,
in the 4,000 range. You don't. You should not be playing. I don't know. I don't think you need to go this cheap this week.
I agree with that. So before we go any further, I will just say that you can definitely
Yep.
play. Gasecki's probably the top option, and then from there it just gets gross. But we don't have enough information to really make a definite call on any of that outside of just sticking with that upper 4K range.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, and so for defense here we have. They actually did not have a 5K defense on the board. That's fun. So Patriots 4,100. The Bills, who we saw broke the FanDuel ceiling of 5,200 yesterday, are 4,000 against Jacksonville. but you're just never really paying up for these ranges. I just like with let's see who the mispriced defense is this week because last week is
Yeah.
Washington against Denver, and that obviously paid off for everybody. They have Jacksonville against Buffalo, no thanks. Vikings against Baltimore, not really. Chiefs, no. Texans, yeah. Browns is interesting. Um, I guess if you
Falcons.
wanted to make a, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. If you wanted to take a stand on a call, it would be Falcons at 2,500 against whoever they roll out for quarterback, as they're both prone to making mistakes. Other than that, though, I don't know if we see a standout defense right now with the news we have.
I like 49ers too at 2,800. I know I'm a little bit of a homer, but I still don't think Kyler's going to play this week. And if he does play, he's going to be greatly hindered by his injury. So I think that 49ers are in play at that spot. And I also think Packers are in play too. I think, if we continue to see Mahomes make all these mistakes, he might continue to make them even against the Green Bay Packers. And I think that both plays at 2,800 are kind of interesting.
I can get behind that in tournaments for sure. Other ones that make sense. Again, it's a little bit too early to tell. So if we get some quarterback news on who's going to start and who's going to play, who gets ruled out, etc. We obviously still have to keep an eye on a team like the Broncos going up against possible Cooper Rush. And like you said, I think that the Falcons are interesting if Trevor Siemian starts or if Taysom Hill starts. Um, Maybe the Dolphins at 3,100 against the Texans. That could make some sense. Other than that, though, it's pretty obvious the clear top defenses up at the top are good plays this week. But you're probably trying to spend down under 2,800. That's I try to look at everything and try to my best to get plays under 2,500 on DraftKings. We also saw that paying up at defense doesn't always work, and it actually kind of backdoored for the Rams last week, and it also uh, it imploded for the Bengals, who were the top two defenses in terms of price last week. So DraftKings is fairly simple, and honestly, I think FanDuel I approached it the same way. You're paying down at defense for the majority of the season.
Yep, for sure. I think there's a few good pay down options, but I'm sure more news will break to help us get some better ones.
Yeah. Do we have any updated news in terms of trade deadline stuff?
No trade deadline stuff that we've seen. It's been actually really quiet, even though we really thought we were going to get a lot here. We have not gotten much at all.
Yeah, we have around 2 or 3 hours left. I'm sure a lot of steam's going to start to pick up in the last hour. Kind of surprised again that we haven't seen more, but I'm sure that we will here shortly. But instead of waiting and rambling and talking on our end, we're going to get off and focus on some NBA content for the rest of the day. So thanks for hanging out today, guys.